So, you decided to play Alien Isolation. Oh shit! Alien Isolation is a 2014 survival horror game that had the unfortunate circumstance of coming out after 2013's abysmal Aliens Colonial Marines, a poorly managed game that was hyped up due to the overpromising of developer CD Projekt. Wait a second, I think I got my names mixed up here. Let me check my notes. Just 1 second. Randy Pitchford. At the time of this game's release, any enthusiasm for the Alien franchise was sadly at an all-time low, with the film Prometheus being a pretty mediocre movie even with original Alien director Ridley Scott at the helm, and the aforementioned Aliens Colonial Marines being... Hello, my baby! Hello, my honey! Hello, my ragtime gal! Well, they both certainly did a great job of tarnishing any excitement one would have for a new project based off of this franchise, especially when it came to the time of the announcement, where it was confirmed to be playing as the daughter of series heroine Ellen Ripley, which led many not to ask the question of, hey, I wonder if this is going to be any good, and more of a... I wonder how you chuckle fucks are going to fuck this one up. But then, the game was shown off, and I and many others were really impressed with what they showed. Gameplay similar to that of Amnesia: The Dark Descent, where you prioritize hiding from the titular alien instead of actual combat, that intrigued hell out of me. This was looking like the Alien game that we've always wanted. It was unlike anything we've really ever seen, when most of the time games that had the title Alien in it usually had versus Predator below it. The one thing that truly stood out the most when this game was shown off was developer Creative Assembly's attention to detail when it came to the art design of the original 1979 film. Although the other games got the ever so important motion tracker right, they never really made much of an effort to get everything else right. But this game was looking to nail that 60s to 70s sci-fi look, and spoiler alert, they succeeded with flying colors. So, with all the positive buzz surrounding the game up to release, it looked as though any Alien fans that were ready to drop ship were back on board.
このままじゃダメだ。そうだ。俺にはまだあいつらが。
And with all the excitement surrounding the game, it meant the game was going to get the positive reception it deserved, right? Right? Well, let's take a look, shall we? Before we get into the actual game itself, I think it's important to cover the review cycle of Alien Isolation. While it wasn't exactly completely terrible or anything, there was a noticeable divide between critics and players. Mainstream critics like GameSpot and IGN gave the game a 6 and a 5.9 respectively, while YouTube reviews like Elder Geek, G-Man Lives, and Angry Joe were a lot more positive towards the game. Many of the more mixed reviews of the game both weirdly commended and criticized the AI of the alien at the same time, saying that while it made the game quite intense and horrifying, it would eventually lead to frustration as the alien could suddenly change the rules or suddenly find you in a locker. This led to a lot of confusion from those who played the game because, for one, that was the intention. The alien is supposed to learn from your actions. But other strange criticisms were the complaints about the backtracking, despite the game having a Metroidvania-like structure. Many players would actually go on to ignore these reviews and just play the game for themselves, which led to a huge divide amongst mainstream critics and players, because players loved the game while the critics seemed to be a lot more mixed on it. And despite the positive reception from the players themselves, the damage from the mixed mainstream critic reviews was already done. Despite many people actually having issues with mainstream critics, usually with completely baseless accusations of them being paid off by other companies, the casual gaming populace looks to those reviews so that they can find the next game to play. that game possibly being one they know nothing about. So despite positive player reception towards the game, casual gamers saw a game with both a 5.9 and a 6 out of 10 from major mainstream critics and decided to look elsewhere because a 6 and below is a pretty hard sell for most people, especially a survival horror game. By May of 2015, Alien Isolation sold 2.1 million copies. While a lot of smaller studios would consider that a pretty big success, a company like Sega considered that to be actually quite weak, especially when compared to Colonial Marines, which sold half of that in a month. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to see a sequel to this game, which is really unfortunate because I think this game did a lot of things that not very many other games have done or even really attempted to do. It was a really unique game for its time, but unfortunately we won't be able to see all these unique things about it be expanded upon. But even if this game isn't gonna get a sequel, I want as many people as possible to play this game. I want them to experience a very unique horror game in the Alien universe. Even if you're not a fan of the Alien franchise, I honestly highly recommend you give this game a go. You might just find your next favorite. And that's the goal of this video. I want to highlight what makes this game special to me, and hopefully you'll find it special too. And with the history lesson now being over, let's take a look at the game that those 2.1 million players, me included, enjoyed a shit ton when it launched over 7 years ago. Alien Isolation starts differently than most games, but not in the way that you think. The actual game itself starts out like most horror games do, a quiet, somewhat low-key affair that's meant for building up suspense and showing off the game's excellent atmosphere, before our titular alien friend shows its ugly... Hold on, it actually doesn't have a face, but I think we can fix that. There we go. Perfect. I'm actually not talking about the game's opening hours. I'm actually talking about what happens when you boot up the game. Right away, the game shows in a small way that it is committed to the original movie's look and feel.
Final report of the commercial starship Nostromo. Third officer reporting. The other members of the crew: Kane, Lambert, Parker, Brett, Ash, and Captain Dallas are dead. Cargo and ship destroyed. I should reach the frontier in about 6 weeks. With a little luck, the network will pick me up. This is Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo, signing off.
Ripley? I'm Samuels. I work for the company.
Not looking to dissuade anybody who wasn't convinced by the old 20th century logo screen, the game opens with our protagonist, Amanda Ripley, played incredibly well by Andrea Deck, being approached by Weyland-Yutani android Samuels, played incredibly well again by Anthony Howell, who reveals that the flight recorder of the Nostromo, the vessel the original film took place on, has been found. It's here where we discover a somewhat tragic revelation, but also immediately endearing aspect of Amanda's character. Amanda has been taking jobs in the sector where Ellen Ripley's disappearance took place so she could find her or any shred of a trace of her. Samuels, who generally seems sympathetic for Amanda, unlike anybody else at Weyland-Yutani, offers her a place on the retrieval team so she can finally get some closure. I really like this setup. The developers could have easily phoned it in and just made a plot where Amanda just so happens to encounter a xenomorph on a space station she's working on and go on the same journey as her mother without much in terms of explanation or setup, but Creative Assembly actually took the time to create a believable plot and setup for the game that connects directly to the original film and expands on the aftermath of that film. The existence of this flight recorder actually serves as not only the main catalyst for the plot of the game, but also why the xenomorph is even encountered in the game in the first place. That's what I appreciate about this game. Unlike Colonial Marines, whose story and, not to mention voice acting, oh god, the voice acting.
Who the fuck is that?
Oh, great. Back here. I'm Corporal Hicks from the USS Sulaco. I've been held under duress for months by Weyland-Yutani.
Can you at least pretend you care?
Who wanted information.
Some way, somehow, the plot and voice acting for Colonial Marines is the part that feels the most rushed, but also incredibly phoned in. But Isolation's plot feels like it was created as if it could be a true sequel that fits with the original tone and feel of the original film. With Amanda on board with the mission, the game continues that authenticity to the film by having us awaken from a pod on a ship that is near identical to the one from the film. We then meet up with another member of our retrieval team, Nina Taylor, played by Emerald O'Hanrahan, and we begin to discover that something is amiss with the Sevastopol.
Can we see it?
Switch to monitors. Sevastopol Station.
Is that damage?
It looks like damage.
Punch up 74, tight angle.
Looks like the dry dock bay is screwed.
I can't bring the Torrens into that.
This is a commercial vessel, Torrens out of St. Clair, registration number MSV7760, calling Sevastopol Traffic Control. We're carrying 3 passengers on a
Weyland-Yutani Bond. You're holding the Nostromo flight recorder unit. We request immediate permission to transfer the passengers port side over.
This waits. Colonial Marshal, Sevastopol Station. Serious situation.
Hello, Marshal? Marshal, this is the Torrens. Say again?
No one is responding to our hails for landing, so we must board the ship ourselves. And it goes... yeah, about as well as you would expect. This scene, along with any and all events that follow afterwards, clue us into the fact that the Sevastopol station is falling apart. Yep, this is definitely one hell of a fixer-upper. But it's my fixer-upper. Except for the spiders, because apparently they appear to be of the Australian variety. As said before, the first few hours of the game are dedicated more toward building suspense and allowing the establishment of the game's excellent atmosphere, which means the game lacks our titular alien. The game instead opts to slowly reveal the creature through cutscenes and in-game events, but it's through these moments that the game begins to hint towards you that it isn't fucking around. Once the alien does appear in a more full-time capacity, it is heavily attracted to sound, so sprinting is a no-go. And you might learn that lesson the hard way, as I discovered in my second playthrough that after the scene with the Xenomorph tail, he is technically in play, but only if you sprint around like an idiot. Yeah, before the Xenomorph is even permanently hunting you down for the rest of the game, you make way too much noise and he will be waiting in vents to fucking kill you. It's awesome.
NANI?!
No! And if you want to be an even bigger chucklehead, keep making that noise. He might actually come out of the vents to come murder you. And being as this is pretty early on in the game, you have no way of defending yourself, and you just fuck yourself over. I love this shit.
Shit! Did you hear that? Quiet.
Oh god, I ran too much! I ran too much! No! That's what I love so much about this game, is that you can actually discover new things on new playthroughs. It almost kind of makes it replayable in a sense, just to see what the alien will do. And that's all thanks to how dynamic the AI of the Xenomorph actually is. This is a wonder of artificial intelligence. Once you get to this point of the game, the Xenomorph's hunt is pretty much permanently on for the rest of the game. And this is where Creative Assembly deserves so much praise for the AI that they've programmed here. The AI in display here is on the same level as the AI in Fear when it comes to just how much it forces you to stay on your toes and never underestimate it. But unlike the AI in Fear, the Xenomorph cannot be killed, no matter what weapons you have. Alright, you alien son of a bitch! Take this! No! No! Initially, the only thing you can really do when it comes to beating the Xeno is treading carefully and hiding. You will spend a lot of time in this game crouched, because crouching makes the least amount of noise. Sound plays a really big part in the Xeno's AI, as this is one of the things that can lead to the Xeno to yours or even someone else's location. Just because the Xeno has left your immediate surroundings, it doesn't mean he's gone until a new encounter starts. No, the Xeno can return just as fast as it can leave. If the Xenomorph leaves and you start making noise by sprinting or firing your weapon, it'll show up. If the Xeno is not in the area at all and you decide to make some noise anyway, it will show up. Sneeze in real life, and the Xeno will show up. No, really, that was an actual functionality with the PlayStation camera and the Kinect. It was actually pretty rad, but that would make the game infinitely harder, so I kind of don't recommend it. The act of hiding is also something within the game that is not completely cut and dry. While hiding in lockers is one of the best ways to avoid detection from your pursuer, it's not completely foolproof. Initially, the Xeno will not be able to find you in lockers, but use this strategy enough times, and it'll actually begin to investigate the lockers you decide to hide in, forcing you to have to hold your breath so that it doesn't find you. Now, you probably noticed that I mentioned the Xeno will begin to change its behaviors should certain actions be repeated too many times. Well, that's because the AI is actually programmed in such a way that it makes it look like it's learning from you. Now, the AI doesn't actually learn from you like it's Skynet or some shit. It actually always has the ability to check inside lockers, but it's locked away in a skill tree of sorts. The abilities within this skill tree are locked away until a certain threshold is met within the game. So if we go back to the locker example again, the first time you hide in one, the Xeno technically doesn't have the ability to check them. The ability is there within his programming, but it's locked. Hide in lockers enough times though, and this theoretical lock becomes unlocked, and it'll begin to check lockers, almost as if it's adapting to you. A greater example of this is once you acquire the flamethrower, an iconic weapon within the Alien franchise, and your only surefire way of fighting back against the Xeno. Unless you're some kind of fucking Giga Chad that can use the Molotovs to scare off the Xeno. That is incredibly risky. Your first time pulling out the flamethrower out on the Xeno won't scare it until you actually fire it and cause the Xeno to run away. But the next time you pull the flamethrower out on the Xeno, it'll stop and cautiously approach you. It will never run in fear of your weapon, but it knows what that weapon can do. Now, just because the Xeno adapts to you, it does not mean it can eventually evolve into an unstoppable killing machine with wall hacks and aimbot. It adapts more so in ways that will keep you adapting just as he is. It makes the game feel like it is somewhat of a constant tug-of-war between you and your nemesis. Except when it comes to you, the player, there is no room for mistakes. The AI is built upon two behavioral management systems, one of which is actually really similar to the famous background director AI found within the Left 4 Dead games. As stated in Tommy Thompson's Game of Suture article, the game requires two distinct behavior management systems, the macro, or director AI, and the micro, or alien AI. The director observes the player throughout the game, always knowing your location. Meanwhile, the alien AI is driven by a series of sensors and behaviors that allow it to hunt the player down. The director's job is to point the alien in the direction of the player periodically, to give it a hint as to where it should be looking. Despite this, the alien is never allowed to cheat. While the director always knows where you are, the alien has to figure it out for itself. You can fool it, you can surprise it, and you can escape it. Much like the director in the Left 4 Dead games, it knows when to lay off and let you catch a breather. Well, unless you're an idiot and start running, which I told you not to do with it. Hey! I said to stop running! Stop running, you... well. If it isn't the consequences of your own actions. The Xeno will eventually leave, should its search for you prove fruitless, and that will be done to allow you to progress through the game. This is done purposely so that A, the game does not feel too overwhelming for the player, and B, so that progression through the game is an actual attainable goal. Should the Xeno always constantly be searching for you, then the game will end up becoming frustrating and even give off the impression that you might be soft-locked. The AI is programmed in a way where everything feels like it's attaining a perfect balance between feeling helpless and feeling like there's a chance of survival. Even in moments that sound like they'd be bullshit on paper, like the Xeno baiting you into walking underneath a vent so it can kill you, are actually represented by visual cues that you can easily see if you're actually paying attention. The Xenomorph has been programmed in a way that makes it seem like the perfect organism, the way it was described in the original film, and that's what makes playing this game feel like you're really within the world of the film, making it almost one of the most immersive survival horror experiences you'll ever play. Well, I say almost, because the other enemy types within the game didn't really receive the same amount of TLC as the Xenomorph. The human enemies in this game are not exactly the brightest of the bunch, which is honestly kind of hilarious because through audio logs you'll sometimes hear them say things along the lines of this. God damn it. This entire ship has gone to hell. It looks like there aren't really any other options. Me and a couple other guys are gonna go raid the weapons locker soon. It really has come to this. Look, if I see you out there, whoever's listening to this, I'm sorry. It's nothing personal. But then you end up finding out that it really isn't actually personal because they can't fucking shoot you on sight because their vision is somehow worse than the creature that quite literally has no eyes. The line of sight on the human enemies is pretty awful, but their aim when they do see you, well... Fuck. Where can I get an aimbot like that? I need to stop sucking at Counter-Strike. The human enemy's lack of sight, surprisingly, isn't really a deal breaker because you rarely really end up having to deal with them all that often anyway. Plus, it's possible you might not even notice how bad their vision is because most encounters with humans can end without you even having to raise as much of a finger, because all you really have to do is throw enough noisemakers to attract the Xenomorph so it can kill all the human enemies and then stay out of sight until it leaves so you can loot their corpses. The human survivors are honestly meant more to be another roadblock for the player, and to also give the player an actual representation of living life aboard this once lively space station, along with showing just how much the Xenomorph can just tear through people, showing what your fate will look like should the Xenomorph catch you. The androids you will encounter within the game are a completely different beast than both the humans and the Xeno. The androids, also known as Working Joes, are probably the most unsettling enemies in the game. Not only do they look like Dwight from The Office, but they're also somehow smarter than the humans aboard the station, not to mention stronger.
Listen to me. We've got to re-establish long-range communications.
You're becoming hysterical.
Get back! I'm warning you!
Tut, tut. Let's resolve this act. Good day.
Working Joes will be a real thorn in your side throughout your playthrough because, you see, the androids appear to have been programmed with some shitty Italian spaghetti code, and have now seemed to have adopted the beep boop fuck the flesh people mantra. These creepy androids are killable though. They're honestly the only thing you should really be firing your guns at, but that doesn't mean they'll go down easily. Well, until you get the nail gun. These androids are everywhere, though. Before you even have to contend with the xenomorph, you'll have encounters with the androids. When you are free of the xeno's presence for short periods of time, you will have encounters with the android. And when you think all the androids in the room are dead and just there for set dressing, it's actually alive and wants to choke you because apparently it thinks it's daddy. When you don't have ammo for your guns, though, it's honestly better to stay as far away from these things as you possibly can, because direct melee confrontation isn't exactly viable. Unless you have a stun baton, because if you got a stun baton, you can beat the ever-loving bukkake out of these guys. Unless it's the hazmat androids, then you need to begin enforcing social distance protocols on the fucking double. Ho-ho-ho! Back up! All in all, these Kirkland brand androids work as great stand-ins for your sleep paralysis demon. But they also do a really good job of being another opposing force that keeps you from getting to your goal. Actually, all the enemies in this game play a role in what I like to call the ecosystem of this game. Each of the enemies take their respective spots on the creature trees, with our resident Xeno taking the top spot, and you all the way at the bottom. But as you get through the game, you slowly climb up that tree until you can comfortably stand toe-to-toe with the ultimate killing machine, and finally getting the hell off this station. It won't be easy, but damn, I'd be wrong if I said it wasn't satisfying as hell. Before I wrap everything up, I just want to talk about a few other things that can't really hold up their own section. This game's attention to detail really needs to be reiterated here. Everything about the environmental design just oozes passion and love for the original film. With all of the technology, like the computer terminals found aboard the ship, giving off that futuristic vibe. Even the weapons give off a retro future vibe, with the pistol and shotgun having a blocky prism-like shape, and the flamethrower looking like it was thrown together with some spare parts and duct tape. Speaking of the flamethrower, I love how it is somewhat of an alternate use as a small light source when in vents. Flashlight batteries are finite, so it really works well as a way to either not waste flashlight batteries or just not feel completely and utterly helpless when going through dark vents. I also really need to reiterate the genius of the AI of the Xeno. I went more into the technical aspects to give viewers a better understanding of how it works, but when it's put into practice, my god, is it damn effective at making you feel scared. I didn't even really scratch the surface of what this thing can do, because I want you to figure some of that out for yourself. It's a really, really amazing work of art. This game doesn't really have any scripted jump scares, which is honestly really cool. Nearly all of the encounters with the Xeno happen dynamically. Hell, I'm not even afraid to admit, this game made me scream like a bitch. Check this bullshit out. Fuck. If you've ever heard of the term jack of all trades, master of none, you'll be happy to hear this game does not fall into that description, because the things this game set out to do are all accomplished and executed so incredibly well. So well, in fact, I made a video gushing about it nearly 7 years after the game's release. So please, if you haven't played this game before, I implore you to do so. You can get it for pretty cheap at retail stores or on Amazon or during Steam sales. Hell, this game has become free on the Epic Game Store at least twice since I started this video, so maybe it'll happen again. So please, for the love of God, if you get the chance, check out this game. It might just become your new favorite. But if you do decide to play for yourself, let me give you one last piece of advice. Choose your actions carefully, because if you make the wrong move, it very well might be your last. Hi there. If you're seeing this, then congratulations on making it to the end of my first video, and also thank you so much for watching the whole thing. I've been wanting to make a video like this for quite a long time, and I'm really passionate about this game, so I'm really glad I finally got the chance to do this. So thank you so much for humoring me and hearing me out, and I hope I maybe got any of you interested in the game. So thank you for watching the whole thing. So, as you saw from the channel name, I am the Angry Pomeranian, or how just most of my friends call me is just Eric. And speaking of those friends, I want to thank them so much for being supportive of me while making this video, because I always talked about making this video for like a long time, like 1 or 2 years. I've been saying, I should make this video. Oh, and they're like, yeah, sure. But I finally, for the past few months, sat down and just started making it. And when they heard that I was actually doing it, they were really supportive when they saw how enthusiastic I was about it. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. And one other person I want to thank in particular is my friend Jack, who made the chef meme Photoshop. He's a wizard with 3D paint, so thanks, dude. You really helped me a lot. But yeah, I hope I see you guys again, or you see me again, I guess, because I have a good amount of ideas for other videos, so I want to keep making them. Like, a lot. I mean, I don't know if I'll be doing this full time, but if I could, that would be fucking amazing. But for now, I still have a bunch of ideas that I want to make, or video ideas I want to make, so thank you for watching. And, yeah, have a nice day. Thank you so much. Hopefully you get to see my face or hear my voice soon. Thank you.